this video, you will see 6 horrible and frightening cases that YouTubers have filmed. Christopher Brian Hill is an urban explorer who runs a YouTube channel called URBX Hill. For the past 10 years, he has been posting unedited footage of his visits to some of the creepiest abandoned buildings in the country. In these videos, he often finds himself in unexpected and sometimes life-threatening situations. Urban explorers like Chris face many dangers, including aggressive stray dogs, hostile squatters, and slightly unstable buildings on the verge of collapse. Finding yourself in an unfamiliar abandoned building is often more dangerous than it seems. Despite the danger, Chris usually walks at night and is always alone. It would have been safer to explore these buildings during the day and with a group of friends, but he decided to do things his own way. In June of his 22nd year, he visited the abandoned Westinghouse factory in Cleveland, Ohio. Built more than a century earlier, the factory originally consisted of 7 different buildings, most of which have been demolished over the past 4 decades. The abandoned factory has attracted curious researchers and, more recently, bloggers. In 2012, it gained even more attention after it became the filming location for the Black Widow interrogation scene in the movie The Avengers. A decade later, Chris visited the factory and documented everything he saw. When Chris began exploring the area, it seemed deserted, with only the sound of crickets echoing in the darkness. But 5 minutes after he began recording, gunshots were heard in the distance.
That's Cleveland. Wow. That's crazy.
It's worth noting that Cleveland, where the factory is located, is one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in the United States, making this research even more risky. With experience exploring all sorts of places, from abandoned mental hospitals and sanitariums to empty occult temples, Chris was unfazed when he entered the creepy building. As in many other abandoned structures, he found a mattress indicating that someone had lived here or was still living here. As he filmed the first floor and ascended to the second floor, the only sound accompanying him in the eerie darkness was his own footsteps. The filming became even more disturbing when Chris went to the basement, where he discovered several dead ends under a leaky, mold-infested ceiling. He hypothesized that there might be animals in the house, as unusual sounds came from the basement. During his investigations, he first found several shell casings on the floor, probably from a 9mm pistol. Finding such items in a basement in an abandoned factory can help but be frightening. Soon after, he came across a series of disturbing writings on the walls. As he continued to take notes as he moved through the narrow corridors, the situation became more and more alarming.
This place is so wet. Scared the fuck out of me. Yo, you need some help, bro? Yo.
After about 20 minutes of searching, Chris found the hollow body of a man at the far end of the room. He offered to help but got no response. Chris prudently decided to leave him alone. However, the situation was about to escalate in about 4 minutes. Chris decided to return with the intention of offering the man $20.
Yo. Hey, I got some money for you.
To his surprise, upon his return, the man had disappeared. The man's disappearance was a potential danger because squatters are known to be aggressive toward uninvited guests. Knowing the place where they live by heart, they can easily hide in the shadows, intimidating visitors when they don't expect it. A popular theory among viewers was that the man was not homeless, but a gang member hiding from a shootout that occurred nearby earlier in the video. The theory remains unconfirmed and generally unlikely, given his demeanor. the man was simply not reacting in any way, which most likely indicates that he's either psychotic or on drugs. As Chris continued his search, he noticed bats flying around the basement, which added to the creepiness.
There's a lot of bats down here too, damn.
Upon entering one of the rooms, if you look closely at the far left corner of the screen, you can see the very same man standing in the doorway and looking at Chris from the darkness. Surprisingly, Chris paid no attention to him and kept walking. There was no way to tell how long the man had been following him. It's hard to know a stranger's intentions in situations like this. After a few minutes, the man walked outside. Cars started passing by the building, and at one point Chris thought he heard the man say hello, but the camera footage was fuzzy. Just as Chris decided to leave, he heard someone else's cell phone vibrate, indicating that there were more people lurking in the darkness. Deciding he'd had enough disturbing encounters for the day, Chris decided to take it easy, and luckily was able to make it out of the building in one piece. He'd never learned the identity of the man, and hasn't posted a video from the Westinghouse factory scenes. In August 2016, a video was filmed in Tartu, Estonia, and posted on YouTube. In the video, a group of 4 teenagers visit an abandoned sauna that was built more than a century ago, in 1915, when Estonia was part of the Russian Empire. After 80 years of use, the sauna was closed in 1995 and remained abandoned for 23 years. In 2018, it was completely renovated and turned into a beauty salon that was still operating when a video was uploaded in 2024. But in August 2016, the video's author and 3 friends visited the abandoned place. Inside the building was what you would expect from a structure that had stood abandoned for 21 years. There was a huge amount of mold growing on the walls, and the radiators were covered in a thick layer of rust. The floor was full of holes, and it looked like the entire structure was about to collapse. Throughout the video, the teen researchers encountered disturbing messages on the walls, one of which was particularly creepy. You can't hide. Some rooms also had creepy drawings on the walls. In the first few minutes of their visit, other than the disturbing messages and a few torn items such as shoes, there was nothing to indicate that anyone lived here or had been here recently. However, about 20 minutes into the visit, one of the teens noticed the doorway covered by a curtain, and they decided to explore the room. As one of the researchers shone a flashlight into the room, a scream came from the shadows. The 4 teenagers ran out of the building in a panic, and by the time they got outside, the sun had already set. They got into a car and quickly fled the scene. While the footage doesn't show the source of the scream, it's likely that it was a homeless resident of the abandoned building who simply wasn't expecting visitors. After that day in 2016, the boys never visited the abandoned sauna again. March of the 22nd year, YouTubers Mac and Chris have uploaded a new video to their Back in Time MC channel. In it, they shared footage of their visit to a dilapidated farmhouse in the UK. In the caption of the video, they mentioned that they found the entrance through an open window in the side of the house. Judging from the dilapidated state, the farmhouse had not been renovated for a long time. The floor was strewn with leaves and cobwebs, with dusty, unused boots and several dead animals lying around. Shotgun shell casings lay on the nightstand, signs that someone had been here recently. There were relatively new light bulbs in one of the bedrooms, and a closet held a few neatly folded items. Judging by the pictures Chris found on the shelves and walls, Continuing to explore the house, Mac and Chris went into one of the upstairs bedrooms, where they found an unexpectedly thin and narrow piece of carpet spread out on the floor.
Wardrobe.
I'll just squeeze in front. Can I help you?
Oh my god, fucking hell! You're alive!
You are?
Fucking hell, man.
You
We...
live in here, you can't live in here. Yeah? You
No.
can't. What do you mean you can't? Live
We
in
thought it was
here.
abandoned. We thought it was abandoned.
You can't live in here.
Holy shit. Are you okay?
When they entered the room, they did not notice that there was someone sleeping on the bed, and it was only when they made a noise that the woman woke up. Although her face was blurred, it was clear from her voice that she was quite elderly. In the course of the conversation, she revealed that she had no relatives who could take her to a less depressing place. So out of kindness they kept her company and tried to understand her situation. She introduced herself as Jane, and for the next 10 minutes, they questioned her about her life and how she ended up alone in an abandoned farmhouse. Through their empathy, the initial shock of seeing an elderly woman sleeping in such terrible conditions quickly turns into a heartfelt moment as they discuss each other's lives. Amazingly, Jane has been living in an abandoned farmhouse for nearly 3 decades. Despite offers of food, new clothes, and bedding from others, she is reluctant to accept help, insisting that she is doing well enough as it is. She says that although it is not her property, the farm workers are aware of her presence and bring her food and water daily. In an emotional moment near the end, the couple agrees to visit Jane soon. It could have been a happy ending, but Chris and Mac's caption at the end of the video casts a dark shadow over the situation. The caption says they did some research to find the name and owner of the farm. They even received a message from someone who knew the farmer. Chris explains that the informant knew about Jane's living situation and that she lived with the farmer. Despite her obvious difficulties, Jane is well cared for and chooses this living situation for herself, and her husband checks on her often. It is worth noting that Jane may not have been entirely honest about her situation. Although she claimed to be supported only by the farmer, the informant tells Chris that Jane also has a brother who tries to look after her. Skeptical of this information, Chris continued his own investigation and discovered that the farm was not listed on any land registry. He also discovered another property in Jane's name that she owned from '86 to 2015. Upon visiting this property, Chris found it to be the same, unkempt and dilapidated as the farmhouse. After hearing 2 different versions from the informant and from Jane herself, Chris decided to contact Adult Social Services. In response, he received an email that said, "Good morning. Thank you for your email. I can't confirm that Adult Social Services are aware of this lady. However, I am unable to give you any further details. We appreciate your input and the information you have provided. Thank you for contacting us with your concerns." Chris asked the person who contacted him to tell Jen that he and Meg would be happy to visit her if she wished. Nothing was ever reported about the old lady after that, and it's likely we'll never know what became of her. The only thing we can't say for sure is that if anyone else decides to explore the abandoned farmhouse in the future, they will likely encounter the same situation as Chris and Meg. Unfortunately, these situations are more common than most people realize. With rising prices and the general state of the world economy, much of the elderly population is being left behind. Hopefully, Jane can accept help from her family and live out her remaining days in better, healthier conditions than she was in when the video was uploaded. Artian Elementary is an abandoned school in an underprivileged area of Cleveland's Agora neighborhood. The 92-year-old building has been abandoned for over 13 years after several complaints from residents that the building was a potential crime hotspot. and was lowering their property values, Cleveland's mayor has announced plans to convert the dilapidated building into high-quality, mixed-income housing for neighborhood residents. However, the idea is still in the planning stages, and the city needs additional funding to complete the project. In the meantime, Robert Fulton Elementary remains one of the most eerie abandoned schools in the country. In May, 23-year-old Chris Hughes of a Herbal Hill YouTube channel posted a video of his second visit to the boarded-up and abandoned elementary school. His first video, shot by the 22-year-old, captured strange sounds, humming, singing, creaking, and banging coming from various rooms. According to him, most parts of the building are falling apart due to permanent damage caused by water and the elements. He advised against exploring the schools because of the risk of robbery or worse, and also mentioned that he heard strange sounds during his search. Despite the disturbing experience, Chris decided to visit the school again, alone, at 1 a.m. 2 years later. From the very beginning of filming, it was clear that Robert Fulton Elementary was different from most abandoned buildings, most notably the fact that just over 10 years ago, children were learning in these classrooms and playing in these hallways. Now, the building looks more like a horror movie than a school. The eerie location, pitch-black darkness, and extreme state of disrepair make for an incredibly eerie atmosphere at the school. Few people would dare enter this place at night, let alone alone. Despite being abandoned only 13 years ago, the Robert Fulton School is in much worse condition than other buildings that have been vacant for much longer. Chris didn't seem to be deterred, though, as he filmed the dark hallways with peeling walls and junk strewn across the floor, and as he moved deeper into the school, he began to hear strange noises, but there didn't seem to be anyone around, and he continued his exploration in chilling silence. In some of the rooms on the top floor, the structure was extremely unstable, but Chris demonstrated his expertise in exploration by avoiding surfaces that cracked under his feet. After 15 minutes of exploring the upper floors, Chris descended to the basement, perhaps the most ruined part of the school. As he explored the dark rooms, he found signs that other people might live here. Interestingly, he also found what appeared to be a flooded boiler room. About 30 minutes later, a loud banging sound came from one of the rooms, letting him know he was not alone. Entering one of the classrooms, he found an eerie "Do not explore alone" sign on a chalkboard and a paper "Do not enter" sign on the door. Ignoring the signs, he continued on and found more signs from the inhabitants.
Somebody's been living in here.
It was here that his visit to the school took a chilling turn when he heard a piercing, terrifying scream and ran out of the building, hoping no one was following him. When he later reviewed the video footage, he discovered something even more disturbing. When he first entered the building, the camera caught something he had noticed at the time. In the distance, he could see the shadow of a man entering one of the rooms. It wasn't clear where he went after that, but given the strange noises that had been heard throughout the visit, it was safe to assume that he had been watched all along. Despite the terrifying scream, it's important to remember that the man most likely entered a house that belonged to the squatter. From the tenant's perspective, an encounter with a stranger would have been just as frightening. In situations like this, an altercation can quickly escalate into violence. Thankfully, Chris made it out safely and hasn't posted any new footage from the scene since the incident. This footage was released in October 19th year. YouTuber Baker's Derek View from San Bernardino, California. While riding his motorcycle on a California highway, he noticed an abandoned house on a hill and decided to investigate. It was clear from the start that someone had been here before, and most likely not the original owners. Unlike many abandoned buildings, this house was once beautiful, but its current state doesn't make it any less creepy to visit, even during the day.
Dude, that dark room. I kept feeling something was gonna jump out at me. What's down here?
Hello?
Dude, I think I hear somebody. I think I hear something.
While exploring one of the rooms below, Derek hears a disturbing noise and runs away in terror. He stumbles on his way back, but eventually gets on his motorcycle and leaves. According to popular viewer theories, the noise was most likely made by a homeless person warning Derek to leave. While squatters don't always hide in the shadows, they often use darkness as a deterrent when someone enters unannounced. If you hear a loud noise upon entering a room, it's probably best to leave. Sometimes squatters will make a noise as a first and last warning to scare off visitors. Had Derek continued on his way, he might have been attacked by someone hiding in the dark. While it is a natural impulse to call out and announce your presence, squatters rarely react normally. They usually prefer not to be seen living in such conditions, and their reaction can be aggressive and sometimes violent. Fortunately, Derek was able to avoid a potentially dangerous situation. In the central Canadian province of Ontario, just south of the port of Elgin, there is a small settlement known as North Bruce, or as the locals say, the Devil's Elbow. According to John, the urban explorer who posted this video, Wren got its name thanks to a former high priest who lived in a mansion. Citizens believed the paranormal activity was related to occult activities the priest conducted in his home. The mansion has been abandoned for years and no one wants to buy it, only because of its eerie atmosphere and questionable past. John stated that since the house has been abandoned, it has been renovated from time to time, but at the time the video was uploaded, the house remained abandoned. In the 19th year, John decided to explore the occult estate alone at night. However, things didn't go as smoothly as when visiting other abandoned buildings. The mansion was in relatively good condition, except for the garage, which had seen better days. About 5 minutes into his exploration, John began to hear strange noises coming from upstairs. Oddly enough, the noises stopped whenever he climbed the stairs.
Okay, guys, I think I've been hearing stuff upstairs, but I'm hoping, and I mean this, I really hope that it's paranormal.
John was alarmed. He felt he was in a dangerous situation. As he walked up the stairs, the sounds were repeated, this time louder. Suspecting that someone in the mansion was playing a prank on him, John reiterated his intention to investigate without causing any discomfort. But the source of the noise remained silent and hidden. The noise paused for a moment, only to return with an even more frightening sound.
It's Philadelphia. Oh my God, 300. Hello? Is there somebody here? I'm not here to bother or rob anything. I was just here exploring. I thought it was a baby.
Suddenly, a male voice shouted, "I'm going to kill you." And before the man could see the man, he immediately ran from the mansion without looking back until he was a safe distance from the building. It remains unclear who was in the house, how long they followed him, whether they had sinister intentions or if it was just a prank. Several onlookers noted that it is unlikely that the man was a fellow researcher. There is an unspoken code of conduct in the urban explorer community to keep themselves as safe as possible in such creepy places, so making noise in an abandoned house and threatening to kill someone would be highly unusual. The question remains as to who might have threatened him. It may have been a homeless man who wanted some privacy, but since he hurriedly left without seeing anyone, it will likely remain a mystery. If you've watched up to this point, there's a good chance you've enjoyed this episode, which means you can thank me by liking the episode and leaving a nice comment below the video.